I never thought I'd be the guy who ended up writing a story like this. My name is Jack, and I was married to Sarah for 5 years. We had a decent life, nothing extravagant, but we were happy enough. At least I thought we were. For the last couple of years, I had been working 2 jobs to support us, pushing myself to the limit while Sarah stayed home. I thought I was doing it for us, sacrificing my time and energy so she could have a comfortable life, something I believed she appreciated. Little did I know, I was working hard for someone who was busy betraying me. I started noticing subtle changes in her behavior. It was small things at first. She would take longer to respond to texts, didn't want to cuddle as much, and seemed annoyed when I tried to ask her about her day. I brushed it off, chalking it up to the stress of both of us adjusting to our routines. But then there were the late-night girls' nights that turned into weekends away with friends. She would say she needed time for herself, and I wanted to be supportive. But each time she left, I felt a knot in my stomach that I couldn't shake off. Things came to a head one Tuesday evening. I was home early from my second job, exhausted and looking forward to a quiet night together. Instead, I found her phone lying on the kitchen counter, face up. I almost walked past it, but something compelled me to take a look. I saw a message from a guy named Mark. The way she was talking to him made my heart sink. They were planning to meet up, and the messages were flirtatious and intimate. My adrenaline kicked in and I felt my skin tingle with anger and betrayal. In a daze, I picked up her phone and scrolled through more messages. There were photos and more flirty exchanges that made my stomach turn. I felt sick. I confronted her the moment she walked through the door. She had that surprised look on her face like a deer caught in headlights. "Jack, what are you talking about?" she stammered when I shared what I'd found. Her face went pale, and I could see her mind racing as she scrambled to come up with an explanation. "Look, it's not how it looks. Mark is just a friend from work. We were joking around," she said, her voice shaky. "You know how I can be. I was just trying to have some fun." Fun. She was having fun while I was killing myself to support us. The more I pressed her, the more she backtracked and spun her web of lies. I could see right through her excuses, and it only fueled the fire inside me. The confrontation quickly turned into a shouting match. I was furious, and she was trying to play the victim, claiming I was overreacting. The emotional betrayal felt like a punch in the gut. I had given my all to this marriage, pouring everything into it, and for what? For her to cheat on me while I worked 2 jobs. It was surreal, like a nightmare I couldn't wake up from. Once the initial tidal wave of anger subsided, a different feeling began to settle in: sadness. I couldn't believe this was the woman I thought I knew, the woman I had shared my dreams with. The reality of her betrayal washed over me, and I felt a wave of grief. I had lost more than just a partner. I had lost the illusion of happiness I held on to. The pain was overwhelming, and as I reflected on our marriage, I began to question everything we had built together. Somewhere in the depths of my despair, I realized I needed a plan. I couldn't just sit back and let her walk all over me. I had to make a decision, and I had to follow through with it. My heart was broken, but I was also angry, and that anger began to fuel my resolve. I decided then and there that I wouldn't let this define me. I wouldn't be the victim in this story. I started thinking about how I could turn my situation around. I had already been in the grind of 2 jobs, so why not take that energy and focus it on something for myself? I made up my mind to quit both jobs, start my own business, and cut her off cold. I was going to start fresh, leaving behind the pain she had caused. As I prepared to take action, I felt a surge of determination. This was my life, my choices. I would reclaim my happiness, even if it meant stepping into the unknown. I just needed to execute my plan, and that would be my revenge against the betrayal. It was time to take control. The days that followed felt like walking through a fog. I was in a constant state of disbelief, juggling the emotions of betrayal, anger, and determination. The confrontation with Sarah had exposed a rift in our marriage that felt insurmountable. I still couldn't shake off the images of her texts and the lies spilling out of her mouth during our argument. My heart ached, but I steeled myself for the changes I needed to make. I began by quitting both of my jobs. It was a liberating decision, but it came with its own set of fears. I had always been the reliable one, bringing home the paycheck while Sarah held down the fort at home. Now, I was stepping into the unknown, leaving behind the stability I had anchored our lives on. But the anger and pain from her betrayal were louder than any fear. I had decided that my happiness was more important than clinging to a job that didn't truly fulfill me. After leaving my jobs, I focused on something I had always wanted to do: start my own business. I had a few ideas brewing, but nothing concrete. The time I had once spent working for someone else was now being channeled into crafting a plan for my venture. I started researching, networking, and sketching out business models. It felt refreshing to invest in myself for the first time in years, rather than someone else's dream. As the days turned into weeks, I noticed a shift in my mindset. Every time I felt the sting of Sarah's betrayal, I used it as fuel. I was determined to show her that I could thrive without her, that I could become the man I always wanted to be. The pain was morphing into motivation. I began to feel empowered, which was a stark contrast to the hopelessness I had felt just weeks before. The first sign of my new beginning was when I finally registered my business. I chose a name that resonated with me and reflected my vision, something that would stand for growth and resilience. I can't lie, it felt good to do this. I would be the one in control of my destiny, and nothing would stand in my way. Meanwhile, Sarah was oblivious to all of this. She was still in her bubble, likely thinking I would just sit back and forgive her. She attempted to reach out multiple times, sending me text messages filled with apologies and claims of how she would change. Each time, I felt that knot in my stomach tighten. I knew I had to confront her again eventually, but I wanted to solidify my plans first. I refused to engage with her emotionally, though. I went through the motions of daily life, avoiding her like the plague. The more she tried to reach me, the more I withdrew, focusing on my work. I was almost ignoring her existence while building something for myself. It was a bittersweet feeling, like I was mourning the loss of my marriage while simultaneously rebirthing myself into something new. Then came the day I couldn't ignore her any longer. Sarah showed up at my apartment unannounced. I was in the middle of a brainstorming session when I heard the knock. I opened the door and she stood there, looking anxious and desperate. The sight of her brought back all the anger and hurt I had been channeling into my work. "Jack, can we talk?" she pleaded, her voice shaking. I shrugged, letting her in and gesturing toward the living room. I knew this conversation would be different. I had made up my mind that I wouldn't let her manipulate me again. "Listen, Sarah," I started, trying to keep my composure. "I've been doing a lot of thinking since we last talked. I've decided that I can't do this anymore. I'm done with the lies and the deceit. You've broken my trust, and I don't think there's any way to rebuild it." Her expression shifted from pleading to defensive. "You don't understand, Jack. I was feeling so alone. You worked all the time, and I needed someone to talk to. That infuriated me. So you decided to cheat. That's your excuse. You could have come to me. You could have talked to me instead of jumping into bed with someone else." The words came out harsher than I intended, but I couldn't help it. She stood there, silent for a moment, then started to cry. "I'm so sorry, Jack. I never meant to hurt you. I was just trying to find a way to fill the void. By lying and cheating, you think that's okay?" I snapped back. "You hurt me in ways I can't even describe. You've shattered everything we built together, and I can't just forget that." As I looked into her eyes, I felt a mix of anger and pity. I had loved this woman, yet she had chosen to betray me. The realization was crushing. I had thought our relationship meant something to her, but now it felt like a hollow shell. "Jack, please," she begged, her voice breaking. "I want to make it work. I'll do anything." I stood there, weighing her words. I had thought about reconciliation, but every time I did, the images of her betrayal flooded my mind. I couldn't trust her again. It was clear to me. I had to make a decision, and it was becoming clearer by the second I was done. "I think it's best if we go our separate ways," I finally said, my voice steady. "I need to focus on what's best for me, and honestly, that doesn't include you." I could see the shock on her face, and for a second I felt guilty. But that guilt was quickly overshadowed by my determination to move on. As she turned to leave, I realized that I had taken another step in reclaiming my life. I was finally making the choices that were right for me, not based on the expectations of others. The road ahead was still uncertain, but I felt empowered. I was ready to embrace this new chapter, even if it was born from the ashes of betrayal. It was time to look forward, and I was eager to see where my journey would take me next. After the confrontation with Sarah, I felt a strange mix of relief and lingering sadness. I had finally said the words that had been burning in my chest, yet as the door closed behind her, I couldn't shake off the memories of what we once had. I had devoted so much of my life to her and our relationship, and now I was left with a painful void and an uncertain future. But beneath the sorrow, there was also a growing sense of determination. I had made the right choice, and I knew I had to keep pushing forward. The weeks that followed were challenging and exhilarating. I poured every ounce of energy I had into my business idea. I began networking with other entrepreneurs, absorbing everything I could about building a brand from the ground up. I worked late into the nights, fueled by coffee and the desire to prove to myself, and to Sarah, that I could build something great on my own. I found a small co-working space that felt like a second home. It was filled with other aspiring business owners, each with their own dreams and ambitions. The atmosphere was electric, and it inspired me every single day. I shared my ideas with others, getting feedback and refining my vision. It felt like I was part of a new community, one that celebrated ambition and creativity rather than tearing each other down. But every now and then, I'd catch myself thinking about Sarah. I recalled the laughter we shared, the plans we made for the future, and all the moments that felt so genuine. It was hard to reconcile those memories with the reality of her betrayal. I fought against the urge to dwell on the past, reminding myself that I was better off without her. It was still a battle within, one that I frequently lost. One evening, I was at the co-working space when I unexpectedly ran into a woman named Mia. She was working on a marketing project, and we struck up a conversation. I was instantly drawn to her energy. She was passionate about her work and had a smile that lit up the room. We talked for hours, discussing our dreams and aspirations. It felt refreshing to have a genuine connection with someone again, especially after the emotional turmoil I had just experienced with Sarah. As weeks turned into months, I found myself spending more time with Mia. We bonded over late nights at the co-working space, working on our respective projects and bouncing ideas off each other. I could feel myself opening up again, slowly letting go of the pain from my past. I was starting to forget about Sarah. But just when I thought I was moving on, Sarah reappeared in my life unexpectedly. I was at the grocery store one Saturday, lost in thought about my plans for the week ahead, when I almost bumped into her. There she was, standing in the produce aisle, looking just as beautiful as I remembered, but with an air of vulnerability about her. My heart raced, and I felt a mixture of emotions crashing over me like a tidal wave. What was she doing here? "Jack," she said softly, her voice barely above a whisper. "Can we talk?" I stood there, frozen for a moment. The sight of her unleashed a torrent of memories and feelings I thought I had buried, but I had come so far since the last time I had seen her. I couldn't let her pull me back into that dark place. "I really don't think we should," I replied, trying to keep my voice steady. "I know I messed up," she continued, her eyes pleading. "But I've changed. I've been going to therapy, working on myself. I realize now how badly I hurt you, and I'm truly sorry for everything." Her words hung in the air, heavy and loaded. Part of me wanted to believe her. I remembered how charming she could be, how easily she could twist words to make me feel guilty. But another part of me remembered the betrayal and the pain that followed. I couldn't let my heart override my head. This time, "Sarah, I appreciate you saying that," I started, trying to keep my emotions in check. "But I've moved on. I'm focusing on myself now, on my business, and I can't go back to what we had." She looked taken aback, and for a moment I didn't know if I should feel sorry for her or stand my ground. "You don't mean that," she said, her voice shaking slightly. "No, I do mean it," I replied firmly. "I've worked too hard to get to this point. I can't let you back into my life, not after what you did." The vulnerability in her expression morphed into frustration. "You're just going to throw everything away, all those memories, all that time together." I took a deep breath, feeling a mix of anger and pity. "You threw it away when you decided to cheat on me. I won't let you manipulate me into feeling guilty." I deserve better than that. With that, I turned and walked away, determined not to let her words affect my resolve. It felt empowering to stand my ground, to refuse to let her back in. I felt a release of tension as I left her standing there, frozen in shock, as I walked toward the exit of the store. When I got back to my apartment, I felt a surge of energy. I had faced my past and refused to let it control my future. I thought about Mia, the connection we had formed, and how it felt to be genuinely excited about someone again. I realized that I was finally ready to embrace new beginnings, without the shadow of Sarah hanging over me. As I continued to build my business and nurture my new relationship with Mia, I felt a sense of hope returning. I was learning to trust again, and it felt exhilarating. I had taken back control of my life, and that's what truly mattered. The pain of betrayal had transformed into a powerful motivator, and I was ready to forge my own path, one that was filled with promise and potential. As the months rolled on, I found myself enveloped in a new chapter of life. My business was picking up momentum, and I was working hard to bring my ideas to fruition. I had developed a routine that felt balanced: work during the day, time spent with Mia in the evenings, and a focus on personal growth on the weekends. The weight of Sarah's betrayal had gradually lessened, replaced instead by a sense of empowerment and purpose. Mia became a constant presence in my life. Our connection deepened, built on shared interests, laughter, and what felt like genuine compatibility. I appreciated her perspective. She was ambitious, creative, and supportive. During one late-night brainstorming session in the co-working space, I had an epiphany that my business could provide marketing services specifically for small businesses. It was a niche that I felt passionate about, and Mia's encouragement helped me solidify my vision. "Jack, you're really onto something here," she said, excitement brimming in her voice. "You have the skills, and the small business community is crying out for support. You could build something incredible." Her belief in me was contagious, and I felt a renewed sense of purpose. As I poured my heart into my work, I began to notice the subtle changes within myself. I was more confident and assertive, and I found joy in collaborating with others. The friendships I formed in the co-working space flourished, and I received valuable feedback on my business plans. It felt invigorating to be part of a community that shared my passion and drive. Despite all the positivity, I still had moments where memories of Sarah surfaced. I would find myself questioning whether I would ever fully trust someone again. But with Mia, things felt different. We communicated openly, sharing our thoughts and fears, which helped me feel more grounded. I was slowly learning to let go of the shadows of my past, understanding that I deserved love and happiness. One day, Mia suggested we take a weekend trip together. She had found a cozy cabin in the mountains and thought it would be a perfect getaway to recharge and reconnect. The idea excited me, and I realized I hadn't taken a break since launching my business. It was the perfect opportunity to step back, reflect, and enjoy life outside of work. The weekend arrived, and we packed our bags, filled with anticipation. As we drove through winding roads surrounded by towering trees and breathtaking views, I felt a wave of serenity wash over me. We reached the cabin, and it was everything we had hoped for: rustic, charming, and peaceful. That first evening, as the sun dipped behind the mountains, we sat on the porch, sipping hot cocoa and sharing stories. I watched as the golden hues of sunset danced across Mia's face. In that moment, I realized how far I had come. I was no longer the broken man Sarah had left behind. I was thriving and building a life filled with hope. As the night deepened, we made a fire, and the warmth enveloped us like a comforting blanket. We talked about our dreams, our fears, and what we wanted from life. It felt natural and effortless, like we were two souls that had found each other at the right time. I could see the future unfolding before me, and it filled me with excitement. But then, as if the universe wanted to test my resolve, my phone buzzed with an unexpected message. I hesitated before looking at it, sensing I already knew who it was. It was Sarah. My heart raced as I clicked on the notification. "Hey Jack, I hope you're doing well. Can we talk? I really need to explain some things." My first instinct was to ignore it. I had worked so hard to rebuild my life, and I wasn't ready. to let her disrupt my newfound happiness. But curiosity gnawed at me and I felt a twinge of guilt. Perhaps I owed it to her to at least hear her out. After a moment of deliberation, I replied, "What do you want to talk about?" The seconds that followed felt like an eternity as I awaited her response. "I just want to apologize for everything. I messed up and I realize how much I hurt you. I want to explain why I did it all. Please, can we meet?" I was torn. The memories of my past with her flooded back, and I found myself grappling with anger and pity. I could feel Mia's eyes on me, sensing that something was off. "Who is it?" she asked, her voice laced with concern. "It's Sarah," I admitted, feeling the weight of her name. "She wants to talk and apologize." Mia's expression shifted to one of understanding. "You don't have to do this if you don't want to. You've come so far, Jack. You're thriving now." I appreciated her support, but part of me felt compelled to face Sarah one last time. "I know, but I think I owe it to myself to hear her out. I'll be respectful and keep it brief." Mia nodded, affirming my decision. "Just remember, you don't have to take her back or let her back in. You've built a life for yourself, and you deserve to protect that." With those words of encouragement, I made arrangements to meet Sarah the following week. I felt a mix of anxiety and determination as the day approached. I didn't know what she would say or if it would change anything, but I was ready to face the past head-on. When the day finally arrived, I felt a sense of calm wash over me. I walked into the cafe where we agreed to meet, heart racing but resolved to stay strong. As I spotted Sarah sitting at a table, I felt a rush of conflicting emotions. She looked different, more vulnerable and less confident than I remembered. "Jack," she said softly as I approached, "thank you for meeting me." I took a deep breath, preparing myself for whatever was to come. "Let's get this over with," I said, sitting across from her. "What do you want to say?" She looked down at her hands, collecting her thoughts. I sat in silence, waiting for her to gather her courage. This was my chance to hear her out, but I wouldn't let her manipulate my feelings again. "First, I want to apologize. I was selfish and made terrible choices. I didn't appreciate what I had until it was gone," she began, her voice trembling. I listened intently, ready to absorb whatever explanation she had. It wouldn't change the past, but perhaps it would help me find closure. As she spoke, I became determined to stay grounded, reminding myself of the strength I had found in the months prior. I wouldn't let her words sway me. I had moved on, and I would continue to protect the life I was building for myself. Sarah's words spilled out, a mix of regret and justification. She talked about how lonely she had felt when I was working 2 jobs, expressing that she had sought validation in the wrong places. I could see the tears welling in her eyes, and for a moment, a flicker of sympathy surfaced in me. But I quickly buried it beneath layers of anger and disappointment. "Jack," she said, her voice breaking slightly, "I know I hurt you in ways I can't even begin to express. I've been working on myself, going to therapy, reflecting on my choices. I realize now how deeply I betrayed your trust." I crossed my arms, feeling the weight of her words. "You think going to therapy fixes everything, that it erases the pain you caused?" I could feel the fire in my gut rising again. "You shattered my trust. You chose to cheat while I was busting my ass to support us. What did I do to deserve that?" She looked down, ashamed. "I don't have an excuse, Jack. I was weak. I let my insecurities take over and I made the worst decision of my life. I'm not asking for forgiveness. I just wanted to tell you that I'm truly sorry." "Sorry isn't enough," I replied, my voice firm. "You don't get to waltz back into my life and expect everything to go back to normal. You made your choice, and I've had to live with the consequences of your actions. I've spent months rebuilding myself, my life, and my business. I'm not going to let you disrupt that." The hurt in her eyes deepened, yet I felt a strange relief in letting my feelings out. It was liberating to assert my boundaries, to make it clear that I wouldn't be a pawn in her game anymore. "I know I don't deserve another chance," she said, her voice barely above a whisper. "But I hope you can find it in your heart to understand that I've changed. I miss you, Jack. I want to show you that I can be a better person." I took a deep breath, weighing my response carefully. "It's great that you're working on yourself, but that doesn't absolve you of the pain you caused. You had your chance and you threw it away. I need to focus on my own happiness now, and that doesn't include you." Her expression shifted from desperation to acceptance. "I get it. I really do. I just wanted you to know that I'm sorry. I don't want to hold you back anymore. I just needed to say this for myself to acknowledge the hurt I caused." "Thank you for saying that," I replied, feeling a weight lift off my shoulders. "But this is where I draw the line. I'm moving on, and I hope you can find the same strength for yourself." We sat in silence for a moment, the air between us heavy with unspoken words. As I looked at her, I realized that for the first time, I wasn't feeling the familiar pang of betrayal. Instead, I felt a sense of closure beginning to settle in. I was finally ready to close this chapter for good. After a few minutes of contemplation, I stood up and extended my hand. "I wish you all the best, Sarah. I hope you find what you're looking for." She looked up at me, her eyes reflecting a mixture of sadness and acceptance. "Thank you, Jack. I truly wish you all the best, too." Our hands shook briefly, and I felt a strange sense of finality wash over me. I had faced the past, confronted the person who had hurt me, and declared that I was moving forward. As I walked out of that cafe, I felt lighter, as if a burden had been lifted. Returning to my apartment, I picked up my phone and texted Mia. "Just had a meeting with Sarah. It's over for good this time." I felt a rush of adrenaline as I sent the message, knowing that I was finally closing the door on my past. A few moments later, my phone buzzed with her response. "I'm proud of you, Jack. Let's celebrate tonight. Dinner is on me." Her words brought a smile to my face. I was grateful for her presence in my life, for the support she had shown me through this roller coaster of emotions. I was excited to share my triumph with her and to enjoy the life I had been rebuilding. Later that evening, we met at a charming little restaurant downtown. The atmosphere was filled with laughter and the tantalizing aroma of delicious food. As we clinked glasses to toast our successes, I felt a sense of hope bubbling within me. I was ready to embrace a future that felt bright and full of potential. I shared the details of my conversation with Sarah, and Mia listened intently, offering encouragement and validation. "You did the right thing, Jack. You faced your past and you stood your ground. It takes a lot of strength to do that." As we dug into our meals, I couldn't help but reflect on how much I had grown in such a short time. My business was gaining traction, and my relationship with Mia was blossoming into something promising. I felt a sense of gratitude for the lessons learned through the pain. As the night wore on, we talked about our dreams and aspirations, and I realized how lucky I was to have someone like Mia by my side. She had helped me rediscover a part of myself that I thought was lost forever. I was ready to let go of the past completely and embrace the future with open arms. My journey had been tumultuous, but I had emerged stronger, more self-aware, and ready to carve out my own path. I had reclaimed my life, and I would not let anyone take that away from me again. As we left the restaurant, hand in hand, I felt a sense of peace wash over me. I was finally moving forward, and I couldn't wait to see where this new adventure would lead. The weight of betrayal had transformed into resilience, and I was ready to embrace whatever came next. The following weeks passed in a blur of excitement and growth. My business was gaining momentum, and I was beginning to establish a brand identity that resonated with small businesses in my community. Every day felt like a new opportunity, and I was fueled by the desire to succeed, not just for myself but for those who had believed in me, especially Mia. Mia and I had reached a new level of intimacy in our relationship. We shared our dreams, fears, and hopes for the future. I felt a sense of security I hadn't experienced in years. She encouraged me, always pushing me to strive for more and reminding me to celebrate the small victories. My heart warmed with the realization that I was building a partnership based on mutual respect and admiration. One evening, while we were working late at the co-working space, I turned to Mia and said, "You know, I couldn't have done this without you. You've been my rock." She smiled, her eyes sparkling with sincerity. "You did this all on your own, Jack. I just helped you see what was possible." But I knew better. Her belief in me had lit a fire within, one that had propelled me forward during some of my darkest moments. I planned a special evening to express my gratitude, a surprise dinner at that charming restaurant where we had first celebrated my closure with Sarah. As I set the scene for our dinner, I felt a mix of anticipation and nervousness. I wanted to make it memorable. When the day arrived, I picked her up and led her to the restaurant, where I had reserved a table under the soft glow of fairy lights. "Wow, this is beautiful," she exclaimed, looking around with delight. "Just wait, it gets better." I grinned, my heart racing as I pulled out a small box from my pocket. Mia noticed the box and raised an eyebrow. "What's that?" "Just a little something to show you how much you mean to me." Her eyes widened as I opened the box to reveal a simple silver bracelet, engraved with the words "Together we rise." "I wanted you to have this as a reminder of our journey, how far we've come and the strength we've found in each other." She looked touched, her eyes shimmering with unshed tears. "Jack, it's beautiful, thank you." As I fastened the bracelet around her wrist, I couldn't help but reflect on how far I had come since the days of betrayal and heartbreak. I had built a life for myself, a life filled with purpose and love. Over the next few months, my business continued to grow, and I found myself more fulfilled than I had ever been. I hired a few employees, allowing me to delegate tasks and focus on expanding my services. I was building something that not only represented my passion but also supported others in their entrepreneurial journeys. It felt incredibly rewarding. Mia and I spent more time together, exploring our interests as a couple. We took weekend trips, hiked through beautiful landscapes, and enjoyed lazy Sundays filled with coffee and conversation. The laughter we shared echoed in the walls of my apartment, and I finally felt at home. One evening, as we sat on the couch watching a movie, I turned to her and said, "You know, I never thought I'd be this happy again after everything that happened with Sarah. You've shown me that it's possible to love and trust again." She leaned into me, her head resting on my shoulder. "You've shown me what resilience looks like. I admire your strength, Jack. You took a painful situation and turned it into something beautiful." As we sat there in comfortable silence, I felt an overwhelming sense of gratitude. I had come to understand that while betrayal could shatter trust, it could also pave the way for growth and new beginnings. I had learned hard lessons about love and commitment, but I had also discovered the importance of self-worth and resilience. A few months later, I received an unexpected call. It was a local business association inviting me to speak at an event about entrepreneurship and overcoming challenges. The request caught me off guard, but after some deliberation, I decided to accept. As I prepared my speech, I reflected on my journey, how I had transformed pain into strength and built a life that I was proud of. On the day of the event, I stood in front of a crowd filled with aspiring entrepreneurs, sharing my story of betrayal, resilience, and ultimately, redemption. I spoke candidly, recounting my experience with Sarah, the pain of betrayal, and how I had found the courage to rise above it all. I emphasized the importance of self-love, setting boundaries, and embracing new beginnings. The audience was captivated, and I felt a sense of purpose wash over me as I connected with them. Afterward, people approached me with kind words and stories of their own struggles. It felt amazing to know that my story resonated with others, and I was able to inspire them to focus on their journeys as well. As I walked off the stage, Mia was waiting for me with a proud smile. "You were incredible," she said, wrapping her arms around me. "You're going to help so many people." In that moment, I recognized how far I had come. I was no longer defined by my past. I had transformed it into a stepping stone for a brighter future. I was excited about what lay ahead, both in my personal life and my career. And as I looked into Mia's eyes, I knew that I had found a partner who would stand by me through thick and thin. We were building a life together, one that was grounded in love, trust, and mutual respect. I had emerged from the darkness of betrayal to embrace a life filled with light, hope, and possibility. Each day was a new chapter, and I was ready to write my own story, one filled with love, resilience, and the strength to overcome any challenge that came my way.